Strange thing happened to me this week as I was finishing up the final details for the ski trip this year. So I was thinking about skiing. Of course, I know that some places it's actually snowing, but I was thinking about skiing, and then all of a sudden, just thinking about it, my right knee started hurting. So I don't know what that meant. But anyway, that was just a side note. Strange, I don't know. I'm not that old yet. So anyway, but we've been doing a series on grace. We have been learning about what God has done in our lives through this wonderful gift of grace. And it's been a great series. I think it's really got us really focused in on who God is and how much in love He is with us, to be able to extend hands of grace down to us, that we are able to say that we have received this free gift, this saving grace that has transformed our lives, that because of this grace we are able to have a relationship with God. But we are able to have a relationship in His kingdom right now. And that is a wonderful thing to realize. And I think a lot of us have just been sort of just struck by how wonderful this idea of grace is. And it's been good for us. But today we're going to be looking at this idea of extending grace. Extending grace. And a definition of grace that I have been looking at has sort of been this through this study. And it's this. It's grace is the generous overflow of the love of God, the Father, toward the Son, Jesus Christ. This love is most clearly demonstrated to humans through God's selfless giving. Through God's selfless giving of Jesus to enable people to enter into a loving relationship with God as the Holy Spirit enables them. And so we have this definition of grace. We have this definition that Brian gave, that Philip Yancey uses, which is awesome. I mean, it makes us to begin to think how big grace is. And unfortunately, I think a lot of us, we begin to water down this idea of grace. And when we water down this idea of grace, we really begin to water down what it means to be a follower of Christ. And so we need to understand what this idea, this concept of grace is. And we've seen it, and we say yes to God, we say yes to Jesus Christ. Because of this free gift, we have this saving grace in our life that enables us to be part of God's kingdom right now and forever. But sometimes we take this idea of grace and we just keep it for us. And the thing is that that's nothing unlike our human nature, our human condition. For our human condition is very focused on self. Very focused on self. And so we see that in not just this idea of our faith, but we see it through everything in our lives. A lot of that happens is that we can turn any situation into a situation that we are the main character. And sometimes that can happen, and sometimes that's all right. And, we need to focus on self. If God told us that we need to make a personal commitment to Jesus Christ, and we need to do that. We need to understand that we need to have that personal relationship with God. But if it ends there, it will indeed fizzle out. It will indeed fade away. There is something much more than that. And so we have to battle this thing inside of us, this human condition that we have that says that we need to be worried about ourselves. I remember when I was, many years ago, I went to a funeral. And at this funeral, of course, it was a funeral of someone who lived a long life and they passed away, and the family was grieving. The family was grieving, which they're supposed to do. And they were at this, and they were grieving, and someone came to that funeral, someone who was a person who was just supporting someone, which was great. But then me and my youthful ears, I overheard this individual say, man, this is going to happen to my parents someday too. And I was struck by that, because here was a family grieving of their loss, and this individual all of a sudden turned that whole funeral into something that's dealing completely with them. And so often we do that in situations. It's not just always these major situations, but it's also little situations. But we like to focus on self. But if we do that with our faith, it will soon fizzle out. And so what are some of the reasonings by causing us to just focus on self some of the things that we can get clogged up in our understanding of grace in our lives and how we need to extend that grace. And I think we often can just have the saying of, I have been wronged. I have been wronged. How many of you have ever felt that or said that in your life? That person has wronged me. And usually when you start saying stuff like that, the stuff that follows isn't that good. Because usually it's severed relationships, it's broken relationships, broken marriages, broken mothers and daughters and fathers and sons and families. The systems just fall apart because you have wronged me. Because you have wronged me, this conversation is over. Because you have wronged me, this relationship is over. I mean, this is going back to high school and you have wronged me, let's meet in the parking lot kind of stuff. But the crazy thing is that this saying is also the saying that is said right before wars begin. And we deal with this idea that because you have wronged myself, you have wronged me, it's over. It's done. And yet this radical idea of grace, is saying, you have wronged me, but I'm okay with that. You have wronged me, but I have sent my Son into this world so that you might live. And so if God is so abundant with this idea of extending this grace to us, then surely He is desiring from us to extend it to others. Well, in search of an illustration this week, I was searching and I was just coming up short. So short. But then, unfortunately, an event happened that now I have an illustration. And so, this week is a great week. I love this week in the year. The leaves are changing, but as the leaves change, it is baseball playoff time. And it's just a fun time. I love baseball, I do. And of course I love the St. Louis Cardinals, so it made this week even that much better. The Cardinals, I'm seeing a grimace, Mike. The Cardinals were playing. And see, as an individual, I get to watch. I like watching baseball. Just ask Krista and she'll say, who's playing? I'm like, it doesn't matter. But this mattered. This mattered because the St. Louis Cardinals were on TV for 3 nights. And it was great. I was in love with it. I love this, I think. But unfortunately, it may have not been the outcome that I desired. And so I watched the first game the Cardinals lose. And I'm thinking to myself, I watch 162 games a season. You need to win at least one game. And so then the next night, the Cardinals come out and play, and they have an outstanding pitching performance from their pitcher. And now I'm going to stop and do a little backtracking. After the All-Star break, which takes place in July, which is the Midsummer Classic, which means it's in the middle of the season, the Cardinals made a trade. They made a trade for Matt Holliday. This in 2007, he won the batting championship. This was the piece that as Cardinals fans we were saying, this is the ticket. At the time they acquired Matt Holliday, they were trailing the Chicago Cubs. And as some of you are Chicago Cubs fans, you know that many moons ago they were out of this season. And so, but with this piece, Matt Holliday came in and he brought us Cardinals fans hope. And they started winning, and they started winning, and they started dominating. That it was no longer a discussion of if they would win the National League Central. It was the discussion of how many games will it take them to win the World Series. It was that big of a jolt to the system that we were talking about the World Series, no longer the season. All right, let's flash back to a few days ago. Flashback. Like I said, the pitcher had a great game. Pitched a wonderful game. The Cardinals are winning 2-1 in the bottom of the 9th inning. Get 2 quick outs, that away. One more out. The Cardinals have tied the series up 1-1. All right. Then all of a sudden, the batter, who's up, hits the ball, broken bat ball. It's going out. It's a sinking line drive. As Cardinals fans, we're thinking, it's going to Matt Holliday. He's not only a batting champion, but he's also a very good fielder. Game over. And then all of a sudden, for some reason,